as you know, doing that kind of distance, you can't digest enough. You can't get enough calories into your system to maintain the whole way.
Yeah.
And I've been running
Yeah.
a lot more fasted. Has been a key, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot fast. I've done 30 miles fasted completely.
Really?
And fasted from the night before.
Oh my.
And
See, I'm just the
yeah.
opposite. I eat the whole way.
Right. There's some of the science behind it, I think, is if your body, you can get your body more efficient at burning fat. If your body wants glucose, it's like give me sugar, give me sugar, give me, and it doesn't have sugar,
Right.
then fat's your other resource, and you carry a lot of calories in fat.
Yeah.
And you can't. It's a slower burning fuel, so it works good for a marathon kind of pace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept hitting the wall. And then I had my first Ironman last year. I had such digestive distress.
Oh yeah.
My stomach just
yeah.
I dropped 2 hours off my time this year.
Wow.
And it was just
wow.
But I fasted.
Huh. Isn't that interesting?
So I ate on the bike.
Yeah.
I had gels and even though I'm trying to do more real foods and less sugary,
Yep.
like dates and things like that.
Right.
And then I just no calories on the run, except maybe like some Gatorade here.
Wow.
And it worked great.
Yeah. I've
That's
actually been
interesting.
reading about fasting a little bit, and I just can't convince myself that that's the way I want to go.
I don't do it, so I don't. There was a time. So intermittent fasting, I played a little bit with when I wanted to lose weight, which has worked well. But I've done. So this whole podcast thing started. My cousin started a podcast, and I sat down with him. It was his first podcast, and since then it's too much time and effort, and he stopped doing it.
Right.
But he told me about ultra running,
Yeah.
which I'd never heard of that. This is like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and now I'm hooked.
Yeah.
And he told me about fasting. He's like,
Yeah.
I want to do a 3-day fast, maybe a 5-day fast. He has not done the 5-day I have.
That's funny. Yeah.
It's such an I constantly now have this conversation in my head, wants versus needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done a 5-day fast. So I first did a 3-day fast. Then I did a 3-day fast, complete Ironman training the entire time. The first time I didn't do much training. The second time I did all my workouts.
Yeah.
I had energy for all of them.
Wow.
And so now I'll have something to eat, and an hour later I'm like getting the shakes, like I want something. It's like I don't really need that. It's so interesting. At 5 was about okay, I really do need to eat something. But the cool thing that I find about fasting, which I love, there's this mental game that your brain does. I'll be working and doing something, and my mind wants to go to food. It wants to think about food. It's like, stop that, stop.
Yeah.
And as soon as I can, like, I've committed to not eating, then all the hunger and everything goes away. I don't feel hungry anymore.
You do get to a point where you stop being hungry.
Right. But your brain wants to go back there and trick you back into thinking. Like even today, I was on a run, and I felt like I need something. Like I really need to get it, like sugar. Yeah. I'm like, and I kept telling I don't really need this. And once I was committed to like get past that, my brain went to, oh, he's not going to give in. It's an interesting thing, challenge. Yeah,
that's definitely a challenge. So I don't know. I'm back to the happiness thing. I like to eat.
Right.
So I just eat all day long.
That brings up a really interesting point. I heard, so Lex Friedman, who I listen to here, the podcast, he was talking about anytime he goes out to dinner, he'll fast that day.
Oh, I could do that.
Well, so I just did a podcast with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and I fasted for 2 days before it, and he came over and we had a hamburger before it's the best hamburger I've ever had in my life.
Oh yeah.
Because I went 2 days without eating, and it is interesting how you can, we have this constant satisfaction in our society today, where we constantly can get food, and you withdraw from it, and it makes that. I could have had a McDonald's hamburger, and it would have tasted out of this world.
Right.
So that there is talking about happiness. You actually can manipulate.
That's true. I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like we used to do a lot of whitewater canoeing, and so if we were doing canoe camping, we would take Dinty Moore beef stew, And my college roommate went with us once, and she goes, "That was so good." And she still laughs about it to this day. She said, "I went home and I bought a can of that. That is the worst stuff ever." But it's because you're hungry, you're outdoors,
Right.
you've had a great appetite, and, cooked on a fire.
We did a camping trip as kids down the Saco River. It was
Yeah.
my family, my aunts and uncles. So we had like 4 sets of aunts and uncles with their
Yeah.
kids, and
Yeah.
we all did the Saco River and camped out over
Yeah.
the river. And my aunt Georgia made Dinty Moore beef stew, but I didn't know at the time. And I remember asking my parents, joke, I was like, "Can you please get the recipe from Georgia? It's so good." Like that's my
That's the only place you ever want to eat that
Right.
stuff.
right. Nutrition. You happen to say that was an interesting topic.
That is an
You-
interesting
What are
topic.
your thoughts on?
My own worst enemy. I do value good nutrition, and we grow a lot of vegetables. I like fresh fruit, so I eat tons and tons of fresh fruits and vegetables. But I do like an ice cream cone or cake,
Right.
and those things too. But I have to be careful that I don't, because I'm not a little person, so I have to be careful what I eat. I also like a high quality beer, which is a problem
Right.
because it's not good for you,
Right.
and there's no nutritional value, but it's enjoyable, it's fun. So
You gotta have a balance.
that's
between
right,
what's-
exactly.
Right.
That brings me back to that happiness thing
Right.
too. So it's
Yeah.
fun. So
Yeah, I find I have when I'm setting a goal for a race or whatever. So then as I'm getting closer, it's like, okay, I'm 3 weeks out. I really need to lock in.
Yeah.
And then I can be focused, and then I
Yeah.
can let loose.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. Paul and I ran Chicago Marathon, and so we decided we were just going to run our own races, and so he got in, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes before me, and along the end, the last 5 miles, they had like pitchers of beer out there and all that. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Came across the finish line, and right there they hand you a beer ticket, and I'm like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking for him all over. He's coming out of the beer tent, and I'm like, I can't believe you went in there and had a beer right after the marathon. He goes, oh, you're not going to use that ticket. So we have different priorities at the end of the race.